Hello, hello.
Oh shit.
What's up, dude?
Oh, okay. Did it work for a second. What's up, bud?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I
Yeah.
just to throw it out there, I made some food yesterday that I haven't had in like a year, and it was delicious. It's these Korean noodles. It was amazing.
Oh man, I want to go to Korea so bad. Now that you mention it.
Yeah. Have you been there before? Or do you want to go for the
Yeah.
first time?
Nah, just for the first time. I feel
Okay.
like Seoul seems so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like most people in StarCraft probably feel like that to some extent. I've never been either, and
Oh yeah.
I think it'd be cool to
That's
go to.
true. Yeah. Play some SC2.
Yeah.
Probably get bronze.
Go to a LAN cafe and suddenly everyone plays at 400 APM, and you're like, okay, this is not what I expected.
Yeah. No cap.
So,
Uh,
how's your StarCraft thing going, man?
um, it's been going alright. I've hit a wall, you know. Uh, I followed your bronze to GM, which was awesome. Thanks a bunch actually, because like I played the game for like a month and I managed to hit plat 1, and I've just been idling around there.
Nice.
It seems that around plat 1 to D3 is when people actually start like making workers. So now I'm
Oh,
getting my ass
100%, yeah.
handed to me, but yeah,
Yep.
but it seems I've noticed like the trend is that I mostly seem to be having problems with AoEs, so Protoss storms. I just played a game right now, and I lost 2 games to Zerg, and it was mass banelings to Zerglings, and it's like I know I have to like speed up my production. I watch my replays, and I usually try to stay on top of it. And I have like a strong start, but once I start seeing like Zergs often start doing like multi-prong attacks, maybe they send Zerglings over here and then some over there, I usually start having an issue with that, and I'll like eventually just crumble, and I won't be able to keep up with production while also making bases.
Okay.
Um, and then working against Protoss is just like I just get AOE down. I suck at splitting my armies properly. um,
So are you just
what else?
following the generic? So far, are you just following what we were doing in Beta Gym
Yeah,
series? Okay.
the 111. Yeah,
Okay.
and I looked at. I'm not sure if you've seen this build, but because I know I watched other replays and I know Terrans usually go like early Hellions
Sure.
to harass the Zerg, but I haven't really done too much research on that to
So
actually
I would
incorporate it.
I would say just in general, Hellion builds for me to categorize them. They're very, very, very good. The more multitasking that you're able to do, and
Hmm.
it's one of those things that if you're able to actually get Hellion, if you have like, there's two things about Hellions that makes them good, and number one is knowing where to use them at the right time, and the second thing is knowing how to use them when you actually put them in the right spot at the right time. So if you can actually do both of those things together and you put them in a spot that is very damaging, and then you actually do the damage you need to do there, then Hellions can be extremely effective at opening against any race, honestly. Even Terran or Protoss or Zerg. In any race, it works best against Zerg, but it can work against all three. But the only thing about Hellions, though, is if you don't fully understand those two concepts with Hellions, it is one of the weakest openers you can do. Because
Hmm.
Hellions, in general, are garbage versus other units. Like, if you have Hellions go up against a Marine Marauder Stimpack push, or if you have Hellions go up against, so like say Bio with Medivacs, or like, let's say it goes up against any type of an air unit, or it goes up against like mech, or it goes up against stalkers, or it goes up against roaches, or Roach Ravager. You're gonna be like, God, or like a Void Ray. Hellions suck ass, dude. This is like rough to open with these things because they just
Yeah.
lose to everything almost. The only thing that you could argue Hellions are good against, unit wise, is like Zerglings, and that's it. Uh,
Yeah.
Other than that, they need to kill workers, or you're just gonna feel like you're behind. So it is what I would classify as an advanced opener. So I
Mhm.
mean, if you really want to learn Hellion builds, I'll 100% help you with that as much as I can. And that's, I mean, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just making
Yeah.
sure you know that that build is actually advanced. And I would say players, even in Diamond League, will struggle to use that properly because you really need to know your shit with when you should be using them, because there's a lot of like rules in the game that dictate whether you should or shouldn't use them at certain points in time in certain areas.
Okay. That's actually kind of relieving because I wanted to have a playstyle like I'm obsessed with the medevac drop and like
Sure.
multi-prong attacks, and I really want to learn them.
Yeah.
And I feel like obviously that's gonna like take a bunch of different control groups to have like medevac drops here in the army on this group, and then it just gets more complicated if you have to like put in ghosts for EMPs or something.
Well,
But
just throw it out there really quick. I'll let you keep talking just a second. Sorry.
mhm. No,
So you like just you gotta realize with dropping, and when you also diversify your army as Terran, these are temporary control groups. The only thing that's gonna be
yeah,
consistent is your main army. But like for instance, a drop, like if you do a multi-pronged drop of like 2 drops at the same time, you could literally make 2 different control groups for that early game. But then when you're at a stage where you're starting to diversify your army more to make more of a death ball in your army, where it's like you're
yeah,
becoming a stronger composition, you don't have to necessarily be as so spread out anymore with so much like multiple aggression. Like I'm not saying don't do it at all, but maybe instead of doing
mhm.
like multiple drops at the same time, you just go down to like 1 drop and you distract your opponent with 1 drop while you then push with a big army, things like that.
I gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. My biggest problem though with death balls, I feel like usually against Terran and Zerg I can pull them off, but Protoss, since they have like so much AoE, they have Colossus,
Yeah.
um,
Oh,
High
it's a bitch.
Templars. That's where I definitely have a weakness. Yo, yeah, it definitely is, man. Oh no. So I can tell you, man, I'm losing my sanity playing against that.
One of the things you can do for yourself as Terran to really deal with the AoE better is to there's 2 ways you can look at a Protoss, and you can identify what they're doing and basically counter it with the opposite thing. And what that means is if let's just say you scout a Protoss with your Reaper or something, and you go, oh, he's opening up Robo first, and then you scout him again, like let's say you pressure him later with a medevac drop, or you have a bio unit running up to his doorway to see what's going on there, and let's say you see a Colossus, and you're like, all right, this guy's going defensive Colossus. And then later on, it always turns it whenever you see people just in your games who go Colossus opener, like 5 minutes later or like 4 minutes later, they have Templars behind it, and now they have Storm and Colossus and Archons, and every time you try to engage, you're just getting stormed, and Colossus are just mowing you down as well. Meanwhile, Archons are doing the same thing, and you're like, wow, this is really hard to deal with. Well, if you notice, for instance, if your opponent opens for something like a Robo first, that is a immobile effect that Protoss has put upon themselves. So one of the best ways you can abuse that is if you just focus, like you change your playstyle essentially, and you go, oh cool, they're going for immobile army, I now go for mobile harassment, and you can slow them down like
Okay.
crazy, and you can make them not get to that point to where that, because again, what Protoss is doing is they're actually doing something that's extremely expensive to do that, to go for Colossus and Storm and Archon and like a bunch of gateway units supporting it. That is very pricey. So if you can actually like deny expansions or kill probes, slow them down, you will actually make it take longer for them to get to that point, or they might not ever get there if you do a good enough job at that. Whereas if you, let's just say you see a Protoss go for like a Council first, and now you're like, well, he might still eventually go for like Colossus and Storm and all these crazy things like that, but he's opening with like Blink Stalkers right away. And then that's not the time to be like, let's go crazy harassing him with medevacs, because then if you fly medevacs into his base, he just Blink Stalkers on them and they just die. And you're like, ah,
Yeah.
well, that didn't go very well, and now I lost my whole army.
Yeah.
So then at that point, then that would come down to something like maybe pushing more direct instead of being so harass focused. So for instance, let's just say you have, and the final way to explain what this would be like, let's just say the Protoss goes Robo first, and you now have like 50% of your army in like 2 different, like let's say you have 4 medevacs, okay? So you have 50% of your army going to the left and 50% of your army going to the right. And you poke his third. He runs over to his third with his Colossus and his ground army supporting it. But because you went Colossus first, all the other tech is delayed initially. And now the drop in his main suddenly does a lot of damage, which is another 2 medevacs. Because you get like 50% on the left, 50% on the right. And then he has to walk back and forth, and it takes for Colossus forever to go back and forth around his bases like this. And it just gives your Marauders time to do damage and your medevacs and Marines and stuff. But now let's say he's got for like, you know, a Council, which is way more mobile for Protoss. You can maybe do a split now that's maybe, and then say you have the same army as Terran. Instead of doing 50-50, now you do something that's like 75-25. So now you send 3 medevacs to one spot to really push that spot aggressively. And now you just send like just the 1 medevac by itself somewhere else, which is less damage than 2, obviously. But it's still able to get critical damage done if he's out of position. In the terms of like maybe you kill a bunch of probes or something like that. So multi-prong is always important in this or in like that matchup specifically, but it's really just about trying to identify how the Protoss opens and abusing that to your advantage as much as possible with mobility.
I gotcha. And so, here's the thing: like, I know that we've gotten to Diamond now, and now we're actually like starting to incorporate builds and shit. But the thing that kind of has been confusing me is like, since Terran is kind of like different from the other races, because I mean you can really just go mech and you can go bio.
Sure.
I mean, like Protoss can have like all the different specializations and shit.
Yeah.
So what I'm like a little bit caught up on is like, okay, I know like there's timing attacks, there's bunker rush or whatever, but there's like if you're going for a macro build, can't you technically just go like 1-1-1 and then play reactively? Because I don't really understand like the purpose of builds on Terran since it's like bio is bio.
So with Terran and just in general, yeah, you literally can go 1-1-1 and then do mech or bio or Sky Terran or whatever you want to do. That is very, very possible, because the only time you really commit yourself to what composition you're going to go for is when you multiply your buildings. So like if you go open up 1-1-1, that's just a solid, safe, standard opener. But if you turn that into 3 racks and a factory and a starport, so you have 3 racks, 1 factory, 1 starport, that's definitely going to go down the bio road. Let's say you reverse it, now you have 3 factories with 1 racks and 1 starport, that's down the mech road. Or let's say you go 1-1-1 into triple starport, or something like that, then that's definitely Sky Terran road right there. And Sky Terran kind of falls into the realm of mech, it's just a different kind of mech. But you could do that, yeah. That is the thing Terran can do. But with Terran in general, I would just say, as a disclaimer for you, bio is going to be the army that is probably going to be the easiest to use just in general, because it is the most forgiving composition to use as Terran. So if you're not really sure what you want to do, I would probably just recommend going bio now that you're like, we're talking Diamond Plus. If we were talking like platinum to platinum to bronze, I would definitely recommend mech for if you wanted to do the easiest thing to control, just because it's such a fucking ridiculously effective army when your opponent doesn't actually make workers properly. Like Thor's just run everything over. But yeah, I mean, there is nothing actually forcing you to do anything. It is very optional. So that is why I think Terran as a race, it's a race that has 2 sides of a coin. The first side is, I think Terran, once they pick what they're going to do, they're pretty typecast in what they're going to do. You're like, oh, he's a bio Terran, or oh, he's a mech Terran. Okay, that's all I'm expecting all fucking game now, for the most part.
Yeah.
But to be fair as well at the same time, Terran also has the most potential of doing the most things before they pick what they're going to do. Because Zerg and Protoss, in general, they usually develop the same way almost every game. And it's really common as to what route they're going to go down. But I feel like Terran, with how diverse that race can actually be, there is so many things that can still happen that has not yet been decided, even though they've made a barracks, a factory, and a starport. Because, for instance, if you have a Zerg who makes a Spire, you're not going to see Lurker Hydra out of that Zerg for a while. You're going to be seeing Mutas and shit, or like Corruptors. And if you have a Protoss who opens up Stargate, you're going to be seeing Void Rays or Phoenix or Oracles. You're not going to be seeing Dark Templars and fucking like Disruptors or something like that. You're not going to be seeing the other tech really early. So Terran, again, that's like the double-edged sword of Terran, right? Whereas it can bounce, like, it has options even though it has all of its tech. But once it picks its option, it's kind of stuck in that option.
Okay, that makes sense. One of the options that kind of confuses me as well is that this was actually only in the Protoss video that I dropped with Beastie. He switches from siege tanks into liberators, and I'm kind of confused. Like, I know liberators are more expensive, so I'm sure they're obviously a better unit in their area as well. What's the real like purpose of that switch? Is it just like overall better than siege tanks?
So it depends what he's fighting against. And if you were to weigh weigh the benefits of what a Liberator and what a Siege Tank is good against, you could say things like, for instance, a Siege Tank is really good if you have complete confidence you're going to control the ground. Basically, the point is if you're going to kill the army as it tries to engage you before it actually overwhelms you, that's when Siege Tanks are going to be better than Liberator, because Siege Tanks literally output more overall damage than Liberators do over time, just because of the splash damage in general. Like, a tank and a Liberator hit somewhat similar, single target. Liberator actually beats the tank just a little bit. It also doesn't have the downside of hitting a fucking an armored unit like a tank does. Like, a tank only does massive damage when it hits armored. It does medium damage when it doesn't hit an armored unit. But the splash damage is insane from a tank. So if you're fighting against an army of like mass units that clump, like Marines or like Stalkers or like Hydras or Zerglings or things like that that just clump up like crazy, then I would say definitely a siege tank is going to be superior there. But if you're playing an army that you're not really expecting to fully kill it before it engages you, but you're just looking to zone critical units before they become a problem. Now here's an example of what that means. Let's just say you're using siege tanks and you're fighting against a Protoss player, okay? And let's say the Protoss player is using mass zealots with his army. Like, he always makes fuckloads of zealots, and then he follows it up with, like, maybe Templars and Archons, but he definitely has a main focus on his zealots. I would say in a situation like that, a Liberator would actually be better, and the reason why is because, number one, a Zealot does not take the bonus damage from a Siege Tank because it's not an armored unit, that's why we're talking about as well. Like, the Liberator actually has an upside where it doesn't have an armored category, it just has flat damage, which is very high. It's a little bit higher than the tank's armored damage, but it's always single target. But another option about what this could be is imagine if you were fighting against, again, like Zealots and Templars and shit, and Archons, and what a Liberator's AI does is it actually focus fires units that can shoot air before units that are just ground units. So if, like, let's just say 5 Zealots and an Archon are inside, and a Templar are inside of a Liberator's circle of field, it will not just always shoot the closest target. It'll only shoot the closest target if they all fit the same category. So instead what happens is there's 2 categories. There's units that are melee units, or like units that are ground focused only, like a tank or a Zergling or a Roach. Doesn't have to be melee, it could be a range unit, but it only hits ground. Or they have the second focus for a Liberator is units that can shoot air. And if it's a unit that can shoot air, a Liberator will always, by AI default, prioritize that unit. So let's say 5 Zealots and an Archon walk into a circle of a Liberator, but the Zealots go in first, and then the Archon comes in right after. The Liberator will shoot Zealots until the Archon steps foot into that circle, and now the Archon will take priority and get shot first afterwards, even if the Zealots are closer. So the Liberator just automatically prioritizes an Archon, and then let's say an Archon and a Templar are in the circle. Both of those take priority over what like a ground unit focus would be, because a Templar is a spellcaster, and spellcasters are also high priority in a unit AI targeting because it can hit air and ground with all their spells and shit. So if let's just say an Archon and a Templar are in the circle together, the Liberator would then prioritize that as to what is closer to the Liberator itself. So if, or what walked in first into the circle, rather. So if an Archon walks in 1 second before the Templar does, the Archon will still get shot until it dies, and then a Templar will die right after, even if there's like 8 Zealots sitting in the circle the whole time. And then once all the Templar and Archon are dead, then it will go back to shooting the Zealots. Not only that, but even if it's not a focus like this, like let's say now you're fighting against Disruptors and Immortals and Zealots or something like that, you wouldn't actually have the AI would not prioritize the Disruptor and the Immortal, but it would, you could still focus fire it yourself and be like, all right, let's pick off his key units before they really fully engage, because if I can kill all of his massive units behind his Zealots, for instance, and I just stim pack my bio as he runs through the Liberator zones, so his Zealots run into my bio, if his Zealots are not backed up by his AoE powerhouses, I can just kill all the AoE behind when his Zealots engage, and then if he disengages, he not only runs into my bio and then runs away from my bio and then back through the Liberator zones, but I'll be able to pop all the fucking, important AoE units behind my Liberator. And that could be a good way to fight against a Zealot-focused composition, better than tank. Because if you fought with tanks against Zealots, all that's going to happen is tanks aren't going to do enough DPS to kill the Zealot, and they're still going to prioritize the Zealot because it's the ground versus ground priority is literally closest unit to me dies first. There's no air ground priority there, or priority of like, oh, it's a Templar, I focus that first. You'd have to do that yourself as a player and micro that yourself. Okay, my computer just like went to sleep there for a second. Jesus, I think I was bored listening to what I was saying. No, but so like if it was tanks versus Zealots, your tanks are actually gonna are liable to kill you rather than him, because you're gonna be shooting his Zealots are gonna be like splashing on top of your Marines and your Marauders or whatever you have there as well, because he's gonna be charging into your army, and you don't have enough DPS to like kill him outright before he gets there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's just one example of like why you could say Liberator transition versus tanks could be a good idea.
Okay. So let's see. I think I had a replay, and it's kind of like the game you just mentioned, and I was curious now.
Sure.
what you would think I should have done here. Let me see if I downloaded it. 52. Okay, sweet. Do you want me to just drop it in Discord, or do you want me to screen share?
You can just drop in Discord. It's all good, and I can screen share you.
Okay, sweet.
All right, let's do it.
Sweet.
All right, StarCraft 2. Okay. All right, let's see what you're doing. Let's see what's going on here. So I will say as well, just throwing it out there. This is my this is what I feel like. Before, I want you to understand that this is very common, that this is going to be your weakest matchup, or it's going to feel like it's a very hard matchup, just because I do think the hurdle of learning how to play against Protoss is the hardest thing for Terrans to overcome around the level of skill of what you're playing at. Like when you start really delving into that diamond territory, Protoss is, because the thing about it is the long story short, before I went to go on a huge tangent here, but Protoss has a very forgiving composition by how tanky it is versus what you have. And there's very minimal effort Protoss needs to throw into the fight to kill you. Just that's honestly how it is. That's just how it is.
Dude, you do not want to hear me when I'm playing.
No,
Protoss,
but
and I like wipe their army and they just come back.
But there's you see there's a silver lining here. That Terran players, this is what gives Terran players the self-justified god complex. Okay, and this is what it is. When you are learning how to play the real high-level StarCraft style of, like, you're actually playing the multitask aspect of the game while maintaining decent to good macro, Protoss has it easier than Terran at first. They do. Like, their composition just works better. It's like, it'd be like pouring water into, like a river that has, like, no forks in the river, and it just, like, flows perfectly. And you're like, wow, everything just works. And then Terran's, like, where there's, like, fucking blockades everywhere, and things have to, like, go all these different pathways, and you're like, okay, we got so many problems to deal with, and I gotta make shit work here. But the silver lining there is, Protosses feel the exact same way you do. Honestly, I would say probably around like as you get up a little bit in skill, what changes for you is you start learning how to break Protosses, because it's so, like, the game becomes extra hard difficulty, and you start adapting to that situation, and it's not like it's impossible. You still can deal with it, but it will overall make you a strong player because of the bullshit you have to overcome in this territory. And like, you start actually making Protosses feel the exact same way as you, and they have to overcome what you overcame just later, because once you actually get to a point where you make Protosses feel like the game is so hectic, and they're like, good God, this fucking guy is breaking me everywhere, and is he actually my league? Like, what the hell is this? Like, yeah, you are, but it's like you had to get to that point where you took steroids earlier, or you know what I mean? Like, you just became so fucking strong at the game that you eventually make them feel like their game has to be super challenging as well, and it's no longer like the game is so easy for Protoss. Like, Protosses do have to work their ass off to deal with a strong Terran. That is a fact. So it just I mean, it's just how it is. Its balance is not absolutely perfect. You just have to hit that, like, hurdle a little bit earlier than Protoss does, but once you do, they have to hit it as well, because you're gonna crush everyone who doesn't. So it's good.
That's what I'm thinking. When you said go mech or bio, I did the mech series like last year or so, and then like I got bored of it.
No, 100%, it's easy as fuck.
Yeah. And then I started bio, and like, I don't know, I sort of am like a masochist or something, because like I'll get mad and then I'll still come back.
Yeah.
Wanting to like learn how to play it, and then I actually just ended up somehow making it to plat through 5SD.
No, 100%. Yeah. But, like
I think it's just like, it's so fragile, like you said.
Yeah, like, bio is I do think, just long story short, bio's better Diamond Plus than mech is, and mech is better Platinum to Bronze, just for, like, learning the game. Now, if you're like a high level player and you've really, you know, made your style specific to what you like to do, then obviously what I just said doesn't matter to you, and you play whatever you want to play. But if you want to learn the game, bio is 100% more forgiving to learn and easier to learn, because you don't have to have absolute game knowledge to, like, always be predicting where things are going to happen before they happen, and that's kind of what mech needs to do once you become a Diamond Plus player. Because if your army's out of position and your opponent actually macros well, you're just going to die, and you're going to be like, oh, I just lost an expansion and another base died and my army wasn't sieged and blah 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 blah, and you're just going to be like, oh, it sucks. Yeah. All right. So just to make sure, you can see what I'm seeing, right? Just I kind of forgot if I ran this for
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Okay, cool.
Now you're good.
Yeah, I was like, did I turn the stream on? All right, so that's a really early scout, super early. That's definitely a annoying probe. I would say the
Oh
fact that
yeah.
he's humping your SCV though means you're not going to get cannoned or anything like that.
Oh yeah.
But just to throw a disclaimer out there, anyone who shows up before a minute into the game at your base already, like 50 seconds or something like that, that is very cannon rush potential. But for Terran, I feel like Terran's probably the best race at dealing with cannon rush, just in general by how the race works. With all like you can make Marines right away and shoot over pylons. Probably not gonna. I imagine you don't deal with cannon rush too much, but yeah, that applies more to like Zergs and shit.
I mean, the worst for me is probably the Void Array proxy. That shit is.
Have you actually seen me
That's a
defend a
killer.
Void Array proxy?
Huh?
Have you actually seen me defend a Void Array proxy out of curiosity?
I think so. I think you did Cyclone, right?
I did So Vikings is such a fucking easy way to deal with that.
Oh, for real?
I did it in one of the last speed gyms that I made. I think it was Diamond. I think I might have done it in Diamond 1 to Masters 3, which
Oh,
I
yeah.
can't. I don't remember if I posted it yet. If I haven't posted it, it'll definitely be posted within a day.
Okay.
Because it has like this big upload time on YouTube. But because it's like the video's like 15 fucking hours. It's just like Jesus Christ. But yeah, no, Vikings are such an easy way to deal with Void Array proxy. It's ridiculous.
That sounds really good. But at least better than Cyclone, to be honest.
Cyclone's
Cyclone can micro the shit out of.
yeah, Cyclone is something that's very squishy, and if you even overstep even like just for like a millisecond, getting too close to the void, it can shoot you while you run away because it can shoot you while moving. Like if it locks onto you, it just stays locked onto you. It's kind of bullshit how that unit works. And then yeah, you lose a Cyclone, and suddenly you're like, oh well, now I'm just gonna die because now he's got like 3 voids, and I got my second Cyclone.
Absolutely.
All right, so talking about this game right now, let's go back to your scouting really quick and just talk about what things mean exactly. So your first scout gets to his base, and you see a Nexus that is about the same time as your command center, and you see a second pylon right there because that definitely is not his first pylon, because if it was his first pylon, there's no way that Nexus would be that late because he's pairing the build same as you with the gateway and the barracks with the pylon, or the pylon and the gateway with your supply depot and your barracks. So you already know what build he's doing, which means it's identical to yours. That's what you should feel already. And if you don't understand, again, if there's anything I say as well at any point in time that you're like, wait, why? Please don't feel free to, or I would say, please feel free to interrupt me. Yeah, so please interrupt me and be like, okay, can you explain? Because I happily will, and I want to make sure you understand.
Yeah.
But yeah, like so far your builds are identical for what you've invested into initially. Because you got also the fact that he's got a core, that's the same thing as your orbital command. Because the same cost there, and this kind of the same thing for both races. In terms of like your investment at that point of the game. So builds are very, very, very similar, and then you see a second gas is finishing. That's super normal for Protoss. You also, another thing that you saw, which is a big deal, is when you were here a second ago, you saw there was only 1 chrono boost left on his Nexus. And just to throw it out there, a way you can look at the game is by just after 2 minutes, like 2:20 or so, 2:15, 2:20, you should see a chrono boost on a Nexus that is either going to be at one of 3 places. It's going to be at, or is it 4 or 3? But let me just explain it, okay? Like the number I'm trying to tell you is not relevant. It's just, yeah, let me explain. If he's at 0, if he's at 0, which is this is possible, it means he is cranking probes as fast as he can. Like all he cares about is probes. If he's at 50, it means that he's been cranking probes pretty fast, but now he's got an option, obviously, but it's still pretty macro focused because now he has an option to still chrono boost his Nexus again, or maybe he can chrono boost like a gateway or something like that. If he's got 100, that is actually standard and safe when you first get to his base as the core is about to finish, because Protosses who play standard and safe are only going to chrono boost their probes once, and they're going, which is going to put them down to 100 at that point in the game when you arrive, and that means that with the 100 left that they have, they can still chrono boost their gateway and their Nexus together, which is the safest form of Protoss you'll see. It's the most standard Protoss you'll ever see. So this means they're not really greedy. It means they're just playing normal. And then if you see a Protoss who's like all the way up to like the 150 range, this is why I was like 3 or 4, because I was like, wait, 0 counts as a number there, so it's actually 4 numbers. If you have 0, that means he's ridiculously greedy because he's making probes like crazy.
Yeah.
But if you saw a Protoss that was like at 150 energy, that means that like right as you get to his base, because again, I'm assuming you're scouting after the barracks is done, basically. So if you see a Protoss who's like at 150. That is a Protoss player who is not chrono boosting anything, and that automatically tells you need to fucking be careful, because that if you see a Protoss that has 150 energy, you should fucking scout for like a proxy Void Ray or something like that, because a Protoss who saves all their chrono is probably gonna all in you with some bullshit. That's a humongous piece of information to know. So the lower the chrono, the more standard the game will be, or more greedy the Protoss will be. The higher the chrono is, because again, if this was like gold, you could just say, oh, maybe he doesn't know what chrono boost does. But now that we're in Diamond League, that no longer is a factor, right? Now you're like thinking, well, he clearly should know what chrono boost does because he's at least in Diamond League, so he knows his mechanic of his race. But if he doesn't want to spend it, it means he probably doesn't want to like he hasn't spent a single piece of it yet on economy, so he probably wants to spend a lot of it on aggression. And that usually already tells you there's a very high chance of a proxy tech. Like, it doesn't have to be a Void, but it could be a proxy robo. It could be proxy anything, really. So, humongous read there for you if you start paying attention to that, if you haven't looked at that before. And then you haven't left. Yeah. You haven't fully left his base yet either, which is, I would say, this is not. Yeah, no, it's like it's not gonna kill you or anything like. It's not necessary though, and the reason why I would say that is because this SCV makes sense to stay here if you didn't make a Reaper. But if you are going to make a Reaper, this SCV should just go home. Because getting the initial read is all you cared about. Because that chrono boost would tell your Reaper what to do. Like, so like if you saw he wasn't saving chrono and he expanded, that's definitely like, Reaper, go to his base right now and go harass probes and scout further tech. And that's totally fine. But let's just say he did not have an expansion. And on top of that, massive chrono boost just being saved up. Your Reaper should not go to his base. Your Reaper should instead be like, let's check around here, guys. Let's check over here, and let's just make sure I'm not going to die to some bullshit right now. So you can actually prepare for something before it happens.
Makes sense.
But yeah, if you weren't going to make the Reaper, though, the SCV is more than welcome to stay there. Like, if your build is, like, going for Marines or some shit, or Hellions, like you talked about earlier, SCV could definitely stay a little longer just to confirm what's going on a little bit more if you wanted to.
Okay.
Okay, so now getting a scout off with your Reaper, and you ran by an Adept and a Robo. That is nice that you scouted the Robo, but this is a moment in the game now where I would say definitely want to be careful with that Reaper.
yeah. I swear to God, this is the worst replay I could have showed you, but I swear I'm not this off.
And I knew it was going to die by how you stood there. I just wanted to give you shit. No,
it was so bad, man.
But in general, if you saw the Robo, okay, that's already a huge deal. That's a huge deal because that can tell you, like, if you remember what I was saying earlier when I was at the start of this lesson, when I was telling you how to abuse people who open Robo first as opposed to people who go for like Council first, or like Council also kind of pairs in the same realm as Stargate, because if you try to be really mobile against a Council, you're liable to get blunked on, and then all your medevacs die, and you're like, oh shit, I flew into his base, and then he blinked on me, and then all my medevacs died. Same thing goes for Stargate. If you fly into his base and you have like one medevac or two medevacs isolated all over the place, and then something out of the Stargate catches your medevacs, and then they just get overpowered and killed, it means your units are guaranteed either going to be stuck in their base because the medevac's going to die, or you just have a medevac that's loaded that just straight up dies. And so that's when it's scary, right? You want to be able to overpower those things because those things deal with mobility better, but they're not so great in power mode. Like if you had a bunch of Marines fighting one Void Ray, you'd actually kill that Void Ray. So same thing could be said about if you had a bunch of Marine Marauder fighting against like 8 Stalkers, especially if you have Stim Pack, you're going to win that fight. So this tells you it's not a mobile Protoss. This tells you this is a power Protoss. So if you know this is a power Protoss, you definitely want to do something more. Like this could be like, okay, well now if I'm going to go for, let's say, bio and medevac drops, I could easily go for now drops here and drops at his third base and just go for multi-prong drops. And don't do a big push like in his face because he went Robo. And then there's no way he can punish that, really. He will not have Blink and he will not have Stargate. Like by the time you do your attack. It doesn't mean he won't have it ever. It just means you can definitely slow him down with your initial attack. And then secondly, now to be honest about the Reaper should definitely do a scout primary and then a probe killing secondary. And I would say the best thing you could do for yourself if you kill a probe, I will say the biggest thing you wanted to see is the Robo. And if you kill a probe after that, I'm okay with that. But if you don't see the tech, definitely don't run into his base and then stand there to die to try to kill a probe. Yeah. I would say definitely try your best to be like, no, okay, we need to go this way and like get around and see what else is going on in his base and get out of there and maybe come back later. Because even here's the crazy thing about Reapers too, that people, I would say, Terrans need to realize to not be impatient about this because it's very relevant and very important. If you noticed your opponent was going for a Robo, and let's say your Reaper not only left his base after you saw the Robo, but you were like, I need to get some damage done, or let's just say even if you didn't see the Robo, but he was doing a good job of having like a depth stand there and like an adept stand there, and you're like, oh, I can't go in there because he'll kill me. So you're like, okay, I'll wait. And let's say your Reaper still can't get into his base, but like you scout eventually and you see a mortal or some shit. Or let's say you see an observer flying over your Reapers because you have like eagle eyes and you're like, wow, I saw that little shimmer of an observer or something like that. And you go, cool, well now I know he's going Robo. If you get some other read other than seeing the building that he's going Robo, and let's say now you see he has a third base, because your Reaper again is outside of his base and you're just scouting around whatever you can every once in a while, maybe like every 30 seconds or something, what you can do is you could actually be like, how about I either jump my Reaper into his main base with my first 2 medevacs, and instead of waiting for like 4, I just go with 2, and my Reaper becomes the other pseudo 2 medevac drop, because I just want to drag him out of position with my Reaper and then drop his other base. So if your Reaper could be here, you drop the main. If your Reaper jumps up here and goes into the main and shoots a probe, you go to the third with your medevacs. And it could actually open the Protoss up to taking a lot of damage. So that Reaper's life is way more valuable than just killing a probe sometimes, if you can't get a read. And it's something that you should definitely try to utilize a little bit better in the future. Because, I mean, if your reaction to every time you use a Reaper is to just... Like, I'm okay with it that you saw the tech. That's great, because it tells you could abuse that with whatever you wanted, like the things we talked about. But if you actually save the Reaper, there's so many more things you can do with it too, which is just damaging to Protoss. Okay, and then another thing for you that you need to do, I would say 100%, would be... This is actually something that is very important to know, okay? And this is something that a Terran told me. If you know who he is, his name is Juggernaut Jason. He said this, and I didn't think about it like this, but it's very true. And I'll say it to you now. And what he said was, just so you know, if you play against a Protoss, if your build is to go for an early reactor on your barracks, you 100% have to make a bunker in your base. Okay. Because if you don't, you're never going to have enough shit there to actually push the Protoss away with like a Stalker or an Adept or whatever the hell he makes. So it's mandatory to make bunker if you make a reactor, because it's going to be a situation where you could literally lose the game right now if you don't make a bunker. Even if you don't even lose the game right now necessarily, because you have depots that could contain your main, contain him out of your main, like make sure he's contained in the natural essentially. If you lose all this shit in your natural, like the mules die, the SCVs die, your main has to be lifted because you're like, well, all my SCVs that keep spawning there are just going to keep dying. That is such a negative for you at the start of the game that it will put you behind to the point where you'll never be able to deal with him from then on. And you'll just be like, everything he does to me just feels like it's too much and I always die as a follow-up. So that's humongous for you to... If all you could do there is make a bunker and you fix that problem, that's definitely huge for you.
Oh man, you're gonna love the next 2 minutes.
Well, I know. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's because I'm watching what's happening right now, and I know that's gonna happen to you. And it's gonna happen to you all the time too. And it's not even because your Reaper died. It's because you didn't make a bunker. Because if this guy wanted to, let's just say hypothetically, you did a good job of keeping your Reaper alive, and he decided to move out anyways with these 2 Adepts. Look at his base right now. He still can defend a Reaper. If you were like, well, I'll just run back into his base when he leaves his base. Wait, he's got more Adepts though. And he's also attacking me at the same time. And this has nothing to do with the Reaper. I mean, when you play lower level Protosses, there is a chance that they will stay defensive if the Reaper is still quote unquote out there, and they're like, as soon as I leave my base, I know he's gonna attack, so I'm gonna play defensive. And lower level Protosses might get caught up in that realm and be like, I'll just play defensive the whole time. But if we're talking about a higher level Protoss, and they understand, well, it's just a Reaper, and I could just make another Adept and kill the Reaper if he comes to my base again. And if it still hasn't died yet, how about I go poke him and just to test the waters and see what the Terran's doing? Because this, honestly, for Protoss, is the Protoss's version of a Reaper. It's just a scout. But if you don't react properly, this becomes much more than a scout. This becomes damage that he actually can do to you, because these things are amazing at killing workers. So this is now a problem that you don't have a bunker, and I already know your natural is going to have to be evacuated because you made a Reaper, or you made a reactor, and you don't have enough Marines to deal with it. Like, you're probably not going to be able to deal with this honestly until you have a tank, I would imagine.
Yeah. So I used to do 3 Marines and then do a reactor, so I should just bunker now and just like keep making Marines until that bunker's done.
I would say if you're even gonna make 3 Marines in a reactor, it's still too little. Like the point of
Okay.
what it would be like you would if you don't want to make a bunker, your build would need to be something like you're gonna make Marines constantly until you have a tank or something like that, which is gonna probably be like 6 Marines.
Yeah.
And that's just not realistic for the build you're going for, which is totally fine. It's just if you make a bunker early game, it's just a little bit of an investment that you can also salvage later and get some of that money back. And it's like all this money you're losing is already more value than what the bunker would have been worth. Or rather, like your build is further behind now because of this than it would have been if you just built a bunker. Is what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And this is again happening to you just because you made a reactor, and it's a good thing to make a reactor, but it means you couldn't make enough units to actually stop this. But if you had a bunker, then it doesn't matter because he can't kill a bunker with this. Yeah, and now like, well, you know, this is one of those things where this is when like a pro gamer would probably just GG right now. They'd be like, I'm fucking dead. There's no way. I'm so far behind now, and I can't win anymore. Like the only way I win now is if the Protoss either makes a million mistakes, or if I play the game of my life and I just get lucky as fuck, being like, oh, he wasn't prepared for that, and I took a risk and it paid off. Like again, that's this like realistically the only way you win the game now is if again Protoss makes mistakes or if you take risks and they end up being positive for you.
Okay.
But if you play standard from here, you're just gonna die. Like in general, like this is a rough position to play from. And the Protoss even could have killed, like, honestly, even more SCVs there, because the Adepts died either way, right? But he tried to run away, and they died. What if he would have stayed there and focused your SCVs and died? So you could be even further behind, which is nuts.
Yeah.
But, again, that's also... I would say this, though. What I just said, I want you not to take that to heart entirely, because it does apply a lot to, like, pro level. But if we're talking about diamond level, people are going to make mistakes all the time. So I would definitely say it would not be a good idea for you to, if that happens to you, just to be always like, oh, just GG now. Because it's going to make you a salty as fuck Terran, because it means you'll only know how to play a game from when you're ahead or when the game hasn't been a problem for you yet. But if you actually play games like this for now, or like if you're still learning the game, definitely stay in games like this and try to learn how to play from positions like this, because it'll only make you a more calm, level-headed player overall.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'm glad you didn't just like, this is not where the replay ended, and you're just like, well,
man.
Yeah, what do I do?
You didn't see my screen, man. I was hovering that surrender button.
Yeah, no, I imagine you were. I mean, that's not good what just happened, but it's still doable, especially since this is diamond. And you see, like, this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is what, like, I'll just talk about your opponent's build for a second here. So your opponent opened up Robo first, right? But his build is to go for Blink Stalkers as an opener. So this is a moment where you could say this build makes no sense. And this is a thing where if someone who has a build like this, if you are a Terran player who plays against this, and you go, oh, okay, well, my opponent went Robo first, so I'm going to pressure him. Like, let's just say you do that thing where I was talking about how you go for a Reaper at like his third base or something like that, and you drop his main base with Medivacs. Even though he has Blink Stalkers, he still can't punish you properly, because he went for Blink Stalkers as a secondary tech, even though that's what his opening is. So it's a build that just doesn't make any sense. It would be like saying your build was like going for, you know, like a factory with a tech lab, and you got, I don't know, fucking like a blue flame upgrade on your factory, and then you made 3 racks. And then you went back to making, and then you lifted off those racks to make Hellions, and then now to make factories for those reactors that you made add-ons in your racks or some shit. Like, it's just, I know I'm sounding confusing as fuck right now, but the point I'm trying to make here is the build is out of order. It doesn't make any sense. Everything's delayed now, and it's open to so much potential aggression. So people who play like this, again, that gives you if there's holes in his play that you can abuse, and I'm not like that's just. The only point I'm trying to make here is, like, the game's never over, and especially in Diamond League, there's always chances because people do weird shit. Yeah. All right. And nice. You saw the observer with the missile turret. Here's a tip I would say for how I would rather you move your units around. Number one, I would say your first siege tank should move from here to maybe like right there. If you wanted, if you just wanted to have ideal placement for yourself, now that because again now that you're in Diamond League and you're actually trying to maximize everything as much as possible, either there for your first tank or there for your tank. That's right here right now. So either one of these cliffs that overlook the majority of the base over here, because you want like I would say there would be even better because it overlooks more of the area that you're gonna get attacked from. Secondly, your depot. This is minor shit, but it does actually help a lot if you have if you're maximizing things that are important here. This should be closed and this should be open. And the reason why is because that's where your third is. So yeah, it's just faster to get from point A to point B. Because if you have to always go down and around every time you want to go to your third base, it's just going to, you're going to add, this is like adding on an extra 2 to 3 seconds to go defend your third base now, which is, if you think about how much damage units can do to something in 2 to 3 seconds, that could be the difference of like 2 extra volleys from stalkers that might kill your command center. Or it might be extra time for your SCVs to get killed while they're trying to run back to your Marines, which is humongous for you because that's a lot of potential game-ending moves that could happen to you. And secondly, another thing it does too, not only defensively does that make a problem for you, but if you're talking about SCVs that constantly have to go down and around every time to go mine, that's an extra like 2 to 3 seconds delayed on every SCV you make for your third base from your main base and your natural. Okay, so here comes your 2 little medevac drops. And then he pokes you and kills your command center, right? You're like, oh, fuck! That definitely sucks.
Oh my god, dude.
Alright, well, does your medevac die as well?
I pulled that shit
Okay,
back.
you pull back, okay. So yeah, that's just, I would say that's just unfortunate, right? So if like if your tank was here right now too, instead of where it is now, you could actually be shooting his units. And if you're, let's just say, again, here's another tip, right? Your second tank could be placed better too. So your second tank is, I would say your second tank could honestly be like maybe like right here or right there or right here if this was your third. Or your second tank could be like right here, right here, right here. Probably right there would be best if this is your third. Because this tank can cover if units kind of come down this way, and this tank can cover if units come this way. So you have lots of tank coverage to help assist your Marines. And it makes it really strong when you do things like, let's say he attacks you and you have a group of bio go down through the wall here, go over, and you stim pack and you start poking him and you kite backwards into tank fire. The way your tanks are placed right now, it's really hard to do that because your tank can barely shoot right there from the high ground. It like barely shoots to the edge of the gas right there. Like the green box literally is how far it shoots. Like that's the white line right there. So that's like how far it shoots right there. And then the tank over here can't even shoot until you're up the ramp. So that's definitely not maximizing your positions here, for sure. Because if your tank was right there, you could shoot probably to like right there with that tank, and if this tank was right here, it could shoot probably to like right there with that tank, and you could be shooting shit outside of your base. Like you could be hitting like this stalker, honestly, with the tank right there.
Yeah, the dirt is definitely something I gotta work on because I lose it a lot. I'm like trying not to go planetary instead. But I definitely like just get tanks out there.
Also, here's another tip I would give you. So what you just did was you just did a decision in like the dead zone of the game of like you don't really fully know what your opponent's doing, and this is why. Okay, you haven't confirmed if he's got a third or not. You have no idea because your Reaper died.
Yeah.
So this goes back to the Reaper as well, right? You don't know if he's 2 base LNing you or if he's taking a third base, and what you're doing against this is you're deciding to expose yourself to take a third at the worst time ever for yourself because you're also dropping 2 medevacs of bio onto his base. You're attempting to like make your army as weak as possible, and at the in terms of defense, and at the exact same time as that, you're opening yourself up to something that can attack you, which means you need defense to deal with that. So you have like your build is like it's going down 2 different pathways for decision. Where if it would make more sense, for instance, if you were going to take your third while not knowing what he was doing, if you were going to stay defensive while doing that, and maybe like send 1 unit to go scout him rather than 2 full medevacs, or if you are going to send 2 full medevacs, which I'm not opposed to, it would make more sense to leave your third on the high ground somewhere and just fill up a mineral line a little bit longer so you don't expose your base the way you just did. And if I've done this as well in my series, which I'm sure I have at some point, just know that that is why you wouldn't want to do that, and that you'll be punished for it because of that reason, that logic. You need to, if you knew he had a third, instead of having extra gateways like this, like look how many gateways he has. This dude has fucking 7 gates right now and no third. This is not the time to expose your third with no defense. So yeah, like you would only really want to be like, okay, like here's a good timer to know what this means. If the Protoss gets to a point where he's already, like, let's say the Reaper's alive, or you have something that can scout, like maybe one Marine or one SCV goes across the map. If the Protoss still has not yet taken a third base by at least like over 5 minutes, like between 5 minutes and 5:30, if there's still no third base down by the end of that, by like 5:30, do not expose your third base like you just did. I'm not saying you can't take it. I'm just saying if you do take it, definitely don't double drop him. Like, do not send all your army to go attack his base. Maybe at most send 1 drop to go attack him, because you're likely looking down the potential of a big attack hitting you. Like, yeah, this is what is going to happen to you right now. And here's the thing though, is if you don't overinvest into aggression right now, and you send maybe just like 1 drop out and that's it, and you just keep making units the whole time, you try to maximize your macro and stay defensive, you have a very high chance to not break here. And then if he's fully invested in attacking you, and let's say 1 medevac of Marines lands right here, you stim pack into his mineral line and you just kill an entirely open mineral line. And not only that, what if you force him to warp in defensively and now he doesn't warp in aggressively with like a prism or something like that? And you're like, cool. Well, now I'm making him a warp in defensively and I'm killing a bunch of probes. This is great. Like, it takes so much pressure off of you. And if you know he doesn't have a third, that's when you run away with the game in your favor. Like, really hard.
I gotcha.
So yeah, I feel like this is just lack of scouting for you at this point in the game, and it's just poor decision of you chose to be extra aggressive with vulnerable defense, and he chose to be full aggression, so he broke you as you were not ready.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've never thought about that before.
Another thing to note too is a lot of times I would tell Terran players to make like just like 1 or 2 tanks and you're good to go defensively versus people who like Protosses in general, because it helps deal with like Blinkstalker pressures and shit like that. But if you do scout a Terran or a Protoss player who doesn't have a third base at all, and you know they're also going for a ground army, one of 2 things needs to happen for you. And also like you're also taking a 4th command center as well, right? Like this is like super greed for you. One of 2 things needs to happen for you, which is you need to either go for more production to make just more bio in general, or you can make more tanks than a couple tanks. Because if you had, let's just say you were like, oh, a full minute ago I saw he was still didn't have a third base, and that's fucking crazy all in. And what if like a tank has like a 30-second build time, 32? So if like a minute ago you saw this, and now let's say you had 4 tanks instead of 2 tanks, and so let's say you do have a tank there. Let's say you have a tank there. You have a tank there as well, and a tank there. And let's say you stim pack your units from like here back to the edge, and then as soon as like if all the zealots are still not dead, and let's say they're trying to go through the mineral line, what if you have like your bio standing here and he's just trying to go through the mineral line and like this mineral line, and you're just standing in this area and you're drilling him away? Or what if like he comes to this area and there's too many zealots and you just lift off your command center, you load up your bio, and you drop again like right here, have this depot lowered, and you can run right back out while your tanks just drill his ass in this area. Because if he has too many stalkers, the zealots will disappear super fast. But if he has too many zealots, there won't be enough stalkers to really kill the command center if you just lift it. Like, there's a lot of things you can do here, but it all comes down to the fact that you would have known he doesn't have a third base. So scouting definitely needs to be a little bit improved, and it kind of does come back to that Reaper a little bit. And if the Reaper dies, maybe just try to send out like 1 Marine or 1 SCV to confirm for a third base if you want to take your third as early as you did.
Makes sense.
Yeah, this is another thing that's like, it's similar to the Adept thing earlier, where it's kind of just like, oh, well, now you kind of can't win from here. Like, this is rough. You're probably going to fucking die now. That was definitely painful. Okay, and then you're doing a 1 drop. And you have a new third coming down to replace it. Now, I would say for the theory that you've done for yourself here, not talking about how I feel like your drop is going down to this base or something right now, which is scary for you. But because like you're walking in the middle in the open where he could just blink on you right now. But the logic you have right here behind this, where you're going for your double NG bays, you're getting your armory, you're trying to do the build, you're trying to play a macro game essentially. I'm totally cool with the fact that this time you loaded up only 1 medevac and you went to go poke him now after your third died, because now you're going to replace it and try to reset and recover. And again, this falls down to Diamond League. I'm not going to lie. You've taken way more damage than he has throughout this game, yet you're still ahead. Your macro is just better than this guy's macro, so you got that going for you, right? That's super good.
Yeah.
But Like the second time around, this makes more sense because I feel like if he attacks you now, with like let's pretend nothing negative had happened to you up to this point in the game, and you just chose to do this right off the bat, there's no way you would really break here. Like you could take damage for sure, and I guess if you microed like horribly bad, you could break, but in theory you shouldn't break to this logically because you're doing a very small investment into poking him with a major investment into defending your third. This makes sense versus the kind of playstyle your opponent is playing. And then this is just bonus if it gets more damage done. And if for this to do damage as well, like really what you'd want to do is honestly, I would say you would wanted to have dropped right here rather than going over here, because I feel like all that's going to happen is your medevac's going to die right now. And that's...
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, let's see what happens, right? What do you do? And he...
Fastest turn of my life.
Yeah. And, like, the thing is he like... At this point in the game, there's so many things he could have done to you, too, right? Like, he could have feedbacked the medevac. He should have blink by now as well, because he prioritized... Even though he went council second, he was chrono boosting out his first upgrade. So, like, this upgrade's... The charge has been done for a while, and he just hasn't done anything secondly. So this... And he's going triple robo behind this. This just is... You know, it's, again, Diamond, it's all good. Diamond definitely makes weird choices sometimes. But that medevac should have died, is all I'm trying to say. So you should have definitely just prioritized that base right there and just focus down some probes. Because even if he has a shield battery here, you could definitely put, like, probes on this side of the middle aren't even in range to be healed. Not only that, but if you have, like, 8 Marines, focus firing probe after probe after probe, you can one-shot probes with that. So battery can't even heal through it.
I think what happened was I got spooked because I saw the warp in. I kind of need to, like, just stop doing that because it's, like, not the first time I've done it.
Sure.
I'll see a warp and I'll, like, try to redirect it somewhere else.
I mean, it ended up working out for you. Like, you're getting what you wanted to get done. You're getting damage done, which is nice. And, like, now this is a point again where you see him coming in, and you should immediately be loading up this medevac again, like, right now, and going back to the main.
Yeah.
Okay, you do? Oh, shit! Alright, so you go back. You have the right idea. And now you drop the main again. Yeah, this is the shit you need to be doing. And you see how much one medevac is disrupting him? And there's no guarantee that this guy is going to constantly defend himself. There's no guarantee that this guy is going to constantly defend himself, because you might honestly push this guy over the edge for him to go, time to fucking all in. I'm done. Nope, that's it. We're going to see what happens. But you would be ready for that because you have your army defensive. That's the idea behind it. You would love it if he all ends you, because it means he's just going to throw the game in the trash.
I think I just throw away the medevac here.
Yeah, it's like you could have dropped the natural, but again, that's fine. Like keep practicing doing that. I feel like that's just a moment where you were kind of getting overwhelmed as well, because you're also not macroing very much while you're doing that. So I mean, I totally understand. The more pressure you apply, the more multitasking you need to do, and that's exactly what I'm talking about when I said Perdos is like, it's got it kind of easy in Diamond, because they can kind of just chill and then attack you and then you die, because their army is super strong. Whereas the only way you can make that not happen is if you multitask really hard throughout the game. So you have it like, all these like speed bumps you got to get through and be like, okay, I got to do this, got to do that, got to do this. It's all got to be perfect. I got to fucking add-on swap and shit while I'm attacking him. I got to make sure my fucking supply is not blocked. Blah, blah, blah. I got to drop mules constantly. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be a bit of a hurdle to overcome for Terran first, like what you're going through right now, to where you can do things like harass him while macroing at the same time. But the biggest thing to remember is while you harass somebody, just make sure you're always using your control group of like group 4. Also, I would say this again. This is your opinion. If you don't agree with mine, I'm not going to say you're wrong. I would just say this is my opinion on it. I think you should put all your production in the same control group. And I think anyone who doesn't do that is a Brood War player. And Brood War players are common for doing one thing to themselves, and it's similar to the mindset that they're masochists. They like making shit harder for themselves than it has to be. Like, fucking literally. There is no reason to not have this shit on the same control group, in my opinion. And for me, I was a Warcraft 3 player, and having your shit in the same control group, it is so easy just to hit, like, let's say it's on 4. 4, Marines, tab, tanks, tab, starport. You can do it all within a second. And it's just, if you compare the speed of going tab unit, it's just as fast as going 3 unit, 5 unit. But the difference is when you hit 4, you actually get to read all the production on it by with quickly looking here with your eyes and seeing production on every building. And you can see, oh, my starport needs production, or my factory needs production because it's got nothing on it right now. So it's reminders constantly. Whereas if you don't have it in the same control group, there are no reminders. You have to physically check it every time. And it just so it takes longer to check your production. It's like the same for producing shit, but it's longer to check your production. It is just a little bit less efficient in my opinion. And here's the thing too, if you're someone who also struggles with the fact that you go, well, Vibe, I'm limited with my control groups, and what if I'm doing drops and I want to push with an army, and I what do I want to put those on? Well, if you clean up your production to be on one control group, you have more options for more fucking drops now, and like you have open keys to use, and you don't have to be hitting like 8 or 9 to use a drop or some shit like that. So that's again, that's just my opinion.
Does it save it if you like press tab? And then like you micro your army stutter step or something, and then you go back to it.
So
because that was like my biggest detriment of it.
If you hit 4 and then you micro and then you hit 1 and you go like 2, whatever your army's on, and then you go back to 4, it resets every time back to barracks. So it's always a reset, and I mean for me personally, I feel like I honestly think for how I can hit buttons on the keyboard, I don't think that I'm like a god and I'm like the god's gift to keyboards or some shit, but I think I can hit 4 and hit any unit I want to make, a medevac, a tank, or Marines and Marauders, all within 1 second every time, no matter what unit it is. So let's say I hit 4 and I make Marines and I got to micro my medevac really fast, but now I want to make tanks and medevacs. I can just hit 4 tab tank, tab medevac, and within a second, like easily, within half a second. Because, like, I guess it depends on how, like, let me just tell you how my hands are on the keyboard, okay? I am not using my index finger to hit tab, ever. So anyone who does do that, I don't do that personally. What I do is I either hit tab with my pinky or my ring finger. I never use my middle, my index, or my thumb to hit tab, ever. So it's usually my ring finger, to be honest. And I can, like, I guess sometimes I'm kind of doing it myself right now, and sometimes I do actually rotate. Like if I hit tab and A, like let's say I'm like tabbing through and I hit A with it as well, I might actually have my middle finger on tab now and my index finger's on A. Like, but again, I never use my index finger to hit tab. That is a guarantee. It's just, I don't know. It's just something you can do fast, and I think it just gives you better reminders of your production. It's your preference, though. I'm not telling you have to do it. I would say definitely try it and see if you like it, though, if you haven't done it yet.
Yeah. I definitely want to free up control groups. So.
Yeah, no.
It was either that or I like cut the NG bays out because I used to have them on too.
Yeah, no, you can even put the engineering bays on your group 5 as well, and you could like you could look at your upgrades with that too, and your engineering bays just go after your production. Upgrades always take a backseat to production, and it's nice that it does that because it never is priority. It's never like what I mean by that is you make upgrades 3 times throughout the game. You're not doing them every 10 seconds. So you definitely don't want to be having them always be like if they were the first thing in, if they took the priority over the barracks, I'd be like, yeah, fuck that. Don't put them in your control group. That's super annoying. But if you did put your upgrades in your control group, they literally always go behind all the other production afterwards. So you could just see shit like this. So you could be like, well, is there little white dots in these buildings? Is my upgrade done? It's a second. If you wanted to do that, it's just another reminder. And then if you let's just say you wanted to go make Marines, tanks, and medevacs, and let's say you went, oh fuck, whoops, I accidentally missed a little bit of Marines on my reactor. How do I fix that? You don't have to go tab, 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 and always hit tab back. You could literally just be like, all right, hit group 1, hit group 4 again. Like just quickly, like 2 different hotkeys, and it resets it and goes back to barracks right away, and you just reset it. Or you could hit tab if you wanted to, but yeah, tab. The people who don't like tab, I feel like, are people that go hit tab like this, and they're like, okay, no, okay, I want to go back to the factory. Okay, fuck, I hit the starport again. Okay, go back to the factory. Okay, I hit the engineering bay this time. Go back to the factory, and you're like, okay, relax. It's not that. It's like that. I feel like most people who do that are people who hate this idea. But if you just go, all right, if I go back to 1 and then back to command center, and now back to factory, hit tab once, I'm good to go. Like I guess it just takes muscle memory, but
yeah,
it's super fluid. All right, going back to what you're doing here, you're exploding your barracks count, and I would say this is kind of 2 things I'm going to tell you right now. I don't like it, but at the same time I do for one reason, and I'll tell you why. I don't like it because I know why it happened. It happened because you didn't macro at all while you were dropping him. And that is your main focus. That's what you need to fix, right? You need to make sure you macro while you drop, because then you wouldn't be able to afford this. But the fact that you didn't macro while you dropped, and then you had a bunch of money, and now you're trying to spend that money, I'm okay with the fact that you did it after the fact. But again, try to avoid that in the first place, because if you keep doing shit like that all the time and you think that this is okay, you're going to struggle as Terran. You're going to always feel like this race is hard, because all this did to you was it slowed down your initial max out by probably another like 45 seconds to a minute, because of all that time that was not being utilized while you're harassing.
Complete.
Yeah, that's the hardest part with me. Is like I can micro and I could do like 4A, 3S and get the siege tanks out, but like actually getting those buildings in between while like microing drops, that is so difficult.
Yeah, so I would say I'm glad at how messy it looks though. That's something that makes me kind of happy, because that kind of tells me you don't give a shit about how you place it. It doesn't have to be OCD art or something like that where you're like, it's got to be perfect. Like, just fucking throw it down. Definitely grab like 8 SCVs, or like be like green box a minute, like go. Whoop! I didn't mean hit B. It's not the same as when you're in a replay. I just went backwards a little bit. But yeah, just like BB, build barracks, and then just be like plant, and then shift click the mineral line, and then just do it as fast as you fucking can. So yeah, definitely try to just like plant shit down quickly, and I'm glad that it looks messy. Okay, now this is a moment where I would say opportunity is kind of missing here. So I would say what you want to be doing here with this is always have a secondary attack with your Terran attack no matter what you do. It's very important. So there should like 100% be at least one, maybe two medevacs leaving this army and going the opposite side of the map. And the reason why that's good is because it gives you initiation advantage. And the way you want to set that up is you want to use whatever your primary focus is going to be as the secondary attack. So think about this for a second. If you had let's just say you have two medevacs, okay? So we're not going to keep bouncing the number around. Let's just say it's two medevacs and they were up here. And let's say you really want those two medevacs to do some fucking damage, but you want to threaten him to make sure those medevacs do some damage. What you could do is you could set up your army just outside of his base at an advantageous position. Like, for instance, you could put your tanks on the high ground, and you could put a lot of your bio on the high ground, and the Protoss knows it's here because you're in the area. And let's say you take just a chunk of your army and you poke him, and you get his attention, and he chases you and he attacks towards you, and you go to a conservative choke pointed area that's super strong for you to fight at, and you pull him back here, and now you know the Protoss is in this area, and if he wants to take the fight with you here, it's going to be an advantageous position for you to fight at. Then when he's committed to this fight, like when he's in the area and you know he's out of position, you drop with medevacs. And now suddenly if he takes a fight here, it's good for you, and if he's out of position over here, it's good for you. Secondly, behind that, let's say you wanted this push to actually do damage, and you wanted this to really fuck the Protoss up. What you could do then instead is, if you had two medevacs up here, you could actually drop the area over here, and you could be like, hey, Protoss, I'm over here. This is me. Meanwhile, your main army's like maybe right there or right here. It's on its way. It's close. And the Protoss comes over here, and let's just say, worst case scenario, he blinks at your medevacs and kills them. Or best case scenario, you see him coming because let's say you scan and you see, because you like maybe you want to try to save the medevacs, so you scan ahead and go, is he on his way? And you see him. There's a scan right here, this whole screen, and your drop is right there, and you see him literally walking at you, all the way through the scan. And as he gets to like right here, when your drops are right here, you load up and boost over to the corner right here, and you know the Protoss because you scanned it is in this area, and you drug him to this area out of position because you made him react to what you were doing. And then you just shove this army right up his ass right here, and you see your tanks like right there, and you fucking get on top of his base. And now how can he defend it, right? Now, suddenly, even if this army dies, you're going to be doing a trade with his army where you both lose a lot of units after you kill the base, which is advantageous for you again. So the fact that you're just throwing this army willy-nilly in the middle of nowhere is not the greatest idea for you, because there's a lot of potential for this to fall apart. Like, if he's got Storm and Templar sitting right here, suddenly you walk over and you get stormed twice, and you're like, oh, fuck, I gotta run away or I'm gonna die. So setup is huge for Terran.
Yeah, I definitely felt that when I was like going across the map. I wanted to attack in a way, but I didn't know how to, and it felt like really uncomfortable pushing that army out. My concern is like, I kind of like switched to Marauders here, and I usually don't. I usually go Mass Marines. I'm not sure if that was right because like I just limited my supply. I feel like
definitely should switch to Marauders as well. And the reason why is because Marauders, they're good at helping you kite, because they can help stutters. Like They help your stutter step when you're cutting backwards because they snare the front line. So they make his units like more stupid as they try to engage you. Secondly, they're amazing at popping Stalkers, and they're amazing at popping Colossus. And they also make Colossus do no fucking damage, really. Like, Colossus killing Marauders are so much weaker than when they kill Marines. Now, Storm is still going to be scary no matter what. But Marauders are definitely good in your army here. And another thing Marauders do really well is they fucking destroy buildings like crazy fast. So that would be another situation where if your opponent has a power army and you have... This is not a power army. This is a mobility army. This is Mass Stalker and Marine. This is an army that... I'm going to tell you right now, this is kind of what we were talking about earlier. This is not ideal that you guys are going to be... The closer your guys' supplies get, the scarier it is for you. And the more you want to prevent him from getting to this point, because your army is very easily made, which is why you have higher supply. His army is more expensive, and it takes a while for him to get there, because he's going for expensive units. He's going for Templars and Colossus behind Zealot Stalker. For his army to be like yours, it would be like this. Imagine if he had like a Warp Prism and a couple of Observers, and then just Mass Stalker Zealot. That would be the same thing as like you having just Mass Marine Marauder Medevac. Because Marauders and Marines are cheaper than Stalkers. Like, a Marine is cheaper than a Zealot. A Stalker is... sorry, a Marine... I'll say it without saying it backwards. A Marine is cheaper than a Zealot, and a Marauder is cheaper than a Stalker. And then the fact that those units are more expensive for Protoss, you could argue that is the extra cost for now to have Medevacs. Because this is where the excess cost of the Protoss units are, is now you're making Medevacs as well, which kind of evens it out to where you guys are both making really massed out armies. And Mass Marine Marauder Medevac versus Mass Stalker Zealot, that could honestly go either way. I'm not even kidding. It literally could go either way. It would just depend who could overwhelm the other guy more. But as soon as you add in fucking Colossus and Storm now, that will be like now you have like 6 Ghosts with this army, and you also have like 8 Liberators with this army as well, or something like that. Like a much more power-focused army that is not just Marine Marauder Medevac. And that's where it's easier for Protoss, because this army is way more immovable than that would be for Terran, right? That's why it's fucking hard.
So it would basically be fine to just load up the Marines, even if it thins out my army, just because like the Marauders can probably hold their own.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, yeah, so like if you have this kind of a style, it really just needs to come down to you need to be all over his base, like as much as possible. You need to abuse your mobility as much as you can.
I gotcha.
Then you go through. And then the fact that you're just committing to the base trade, I 100% agree with you. You definitely should be. And he's actually possibly turning around, maybe? He's like, yeah, he's recalling.
Yeah,
so this is great. This is wonderful news for you. You lost 1 base, and you just killed 2 bases of Protoss. That is a fucking amazing trade for you. Now, you need to pay attention to the fact, like, now how do you know he's not going to go for a full-on base trade? If you watch the minimap, look at your army, right? Your army is, like, I just give you a... If you, I'm not going to show you what I'm going to do, because you can't see me unless you're watching the stream, but you'll watch this in the VOD, okay? Your army is, you get to hear the sound effect. Your army is basically just, like, pushing through, like, really hard into the Protoss. And then your opponent's army is not. Your opponent's army is, like, tapping it. It's like, you know, putting its foot in, like, the pool or something, being like, do I want to dip in here? Actually, no, I'm going to turn around now. So if you see on the minimap your opponent's not fully committed by going through your base, and he's just kind of sitting there, even if you don't even see the recall, if you just see that he's not committing, you need to be more conservative now and think about, what can I do here that makes me have the best trade that I can possibly have? So
yeah,
I would say straight up fighting his army all full on and just losing everything right away is maybe not going to be the best choice for you, because time is now on your side, because he is losing everything and you're ahead. So what you can do is, if let's just say you commit to the main base, okay? I would say that if you commit to the main base, the second you see that he's there too, run the fuck away, okay? Run away.
Yeah.
Now, let's see what you do. So the second you see he's there, run away. So if you fight this, you could throw this game right now, potentially. It could happen. But if you ran away right now, what could you do instead? You just cleared out the left side, so where should you go if you run away? Go to the north side, because you haven't cleared that side out yet. And if you ran away from this army and he had to come down a choke point, which would bottleneck his units like crazy, he would not be able to chase you very fast. Not only that, but Colossus, again, are slow as fuck, and so are Templars. You could run away from him and go kill this entire base right now and bust a hole through that wall and run away from him. And you could even kill all these probes that you see on the minimap as well, which would be beautiful. That'd be amazing. And then you could make this guy have a 1 base all in, which you could play. You could then play defensive against again, and it doesn't even mean you have to play defensive with your entire army. You could just load up again 1 or 2 medevacs, and have them go counterattack his base in his main. Like you could drop 1 or 2 medevacs like right there and start punching a hole through his base again with like 4 marauders and 8 marines and 2 medevacs, or something like that.
Yeah.
And then it puts the Protoss on a clock again where he's like, fuck, I got to all in now. Because not only am I not mining anything, if I don't do anything either and just sit there, the Terran just keeps mining more than me anyways, and he's just building a bigger base over me. And he's also killing my base at the same time with a little bit of units. So now I got to go. And that would be the time when if you had like enough barracks and starports and factories, whatever, to remax like every single time you lost units, you're never going to lose that game then. And you put the Protoss into a massive all-in, because not only would this be a logical decision to kill him to avoid him because you have the lead right now, because you have mobility again and he's got power, but think about the game timer as well. It's almost 14 minutes in the game right now. Look at your main base. Looks like absolute shit, right? You're like 85 minerals, 75 minerals. Protoss is the same problem. He might you might have a little bit less than he does because you have mules, but you can see that it's like this dude has enough resources in his base to make like 2 Colossus, and that he's fucking done. Like this is garbage minerals in his base, and his gases are the same thing. He's got 800 gas and like 700 minerals in his base left. This is terrible. You can make barely anything with that. So that would be game ending if you just went up here. But again, if you run here right now, all that happens to you is you're running through a choke point with a mobility army, which is already at a disadvantage versus a power army. Not only that, you're also softened up like crazy because you've been stimming like crazy through his base. So your army's not even at full power. You're basically the Halloween army. You're the fucking pumpkin. Your army is basically called the pumpkin patch. And then not only that, but like again, power is his advantage. Your mobility, you're super weak as well, but you're running through the choke point now to engage into a hallway where he's got maximum concave. He has all the open area, and you have no open area right here. And then your units as well. Every time you A move him, your units in the front that are close to his army will fight his units as well, but your units in the back will stop constantly to shoot shit like the gas, or shoot the gateway, or shoot the core. Like they'll keep getting caught up on his buildings. So this is the worst fight you could ever take for yourself. And I imagine if I hit play right now, it looks like you're going to take the fight and you're going to get fucking destroyed. He's going to throw 1 storm and all these Colossus are going to kill you as well. Those storms are not even hitting, but it doesn't even matter. Like, that's just the worst fight you could ever have taken for yourself right there.
Yeah. Yeah, when I saw the replay on that, I had to cover my eyes. I just had to like look at the top right as well about like economy, and
But I will.
It just went down.
I will say though, even though what just happened there, I mean, you still have a chance to win the game because you just have overall more active mining than he does. It's just that was an unnecessary way to potentially throw the game in the trash.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the best way you can tell yourself, I know I'm ahead, let's maintain that, is if you go, oh, well, I know he doesn't have bases here, and I know he doesn't have bases here because I literally just expanded there, and I'm stealing his money right now. So if you just have an arbitrary number in your head where you go, I'm on like 6 bases. Just does it have to be perfect? I mean, if you could make it perfect, that's great, right? But if you just kind of guesstimate, that's also mostly okay. Because if you just go, I know I have more than him, that's what you want to know. That's all it comes down to.
Yeah.
And if you go, cool, I know I have more of the map than he does. I got both corners, and I've confirmed he doesn't have anything between the corners, like there or there. Like, you haven't really confirmed that base, though, to be fair. But you get the point. Like, if you did at some point, because a drop would have come down here or something at some point in the game, that would have been fine. But, yeah, I mean, you did push him this way. And you killed 2 bases for him killing 1 base. That's all, and that in itself was a great trade. And then he only killed 1. So you know, again, you should be having a bit of a lead here. And if you just play a more conservative game versus someone who is behind, you always come out ahead in those types of situations, where you can avoid their army and kill their base, and then only defend their army if, like, you know, if that's his last resort. And now he's pushing your base again. So now repairing this and trying to defend that would be ideal. And that's also no situation there too, is right, where I would say If the Protoss just kills your base on the top of the map right here, if this is your vision and you see Protoss pushing the top of the map because he's killing your planetary, and you see his whole army's coming this direction, I would say, and also not only that, your SCV confirmed that he was there too. Like, his whole army is there. This is probably the moment when you want to have one of two things happen. You either want to scan here, just to know if this is going to be a problem for you, or you'd want to maybe like send one SCV or something, just one unit, go, hey, is he pushing? We want to know if he's coming this way because it gives you options. And what are those options? Yeah. Number one, you're going to defend this base. That's option number one. You're going to repair it and you're going to fucking defend it. If you're confident that you're going to kill this army, you're going to make that choice. But if the other option is you go, well, I don't know if I'm going to win that fight though. It gives you an option now to go, okay, well, what if I scan here and what if I see him coming across the map like this? What if I scanned right here and the edge of my scan was like right here and I saw the Protoss doing that? Oh, like your scan's still going and you're like, oh, he's walking into my scan right now. And then your scan ends by the time he's like right here, right? Now your scan's over. And you just saw him walk from there to there with the majority of his units. And you're like, oh, he's pushing me. And what if you tell yourself, that army looks scary. I don't want to fight that. How about I just run across the map again and we counterattack him again? Because if this goes into a base trade, I am still ahead because I have more bases than he does because I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, not even 2. He's got 3 bases. Mm-hmm. So that gives you, again, it gives you options, right? Where you could just base trade him again if you wanted to. And what's the worst case scenario when a base trade? If you kill his entire base and he kills your entire base, you can lift off and you can just fly to a corner and he can't even kill you. Like but the worst thing you can do for yourself is be unaware and just pay no attention to it and go, all right, I'm just going to sit here with my rally point with my units. Even though I know he was just there a second ago and I confirmed it again with an SCV there that just died. I'm just not going to pay attention to this at all, and I'm going to try to defend this after this dies. That's the worst thing you can do for yourself right now. So he shows up and he goes for killing his base. It dies, and now if you engage him, you could throw the game away again right now because this is the worst fight you could ever give yourself. You have Mass Marine engaging Mass Colossus, which are not going to be tied up with a planetary. Yeah, you're gonna die. Yeah, you're actually. I think you're throwing this game. Holy shit! No, dude. Yeah, it's okay. Like, you understand. It's cooking lesson. I totally get it. And then that base just isn't getting repaired, which is rough. Yeah, this game is over. You actually just lost this game right here.
It's a self-destruct.
Yeah. You had this game really hard. But I mean, like, if you, I'm glad. I'm super glad. Don't be embarrassed. And anyone in chat who's like laughing, like, lol, fuck them. Fuck them.
No, I don't blame them, man. I'd be too.
Yeah, they make mistakes like this just like everyone else does. Everybody does shit like this every once in a while, especially when you're learning the game, right? So, yeah. I mean, there's so many things you could have done for yourself that we talked about. Hopefully, in the future for you, you'll think about things like that and go, do I need to feel like overwhelmed right now and feel intimidated to feel like I have to attack, or can I just take a minute and just think about it and go, well, I have a base lead, so he's the one who needs to feel threatened, not me. So how about I just keep, maximizing my situation? And another reason why that fight went so bad for you too is because you actually had no Marauders. Like, Colossus just chew through Marines like crazy. It's ridiculous.
That's where I'm like, I have a problem with, because I keep getting like, I'm trying to also macro and then I confuse myself on what I want to build. So like, I'm thinking, okay, I have to go Ghost, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe I have to go Marauders, and then
here's an easy way to think about it. About it. So just try to make like 2/3 reactors, and like 1/3 tech labs, or you can make it's like a realm of. I want to make sure you understand there's a realm here of like an amount you can have, where it doesn't have to be exact. If you go anywhere between 2/3 reactor, 1/3 tech lab, or 50-50 reactor tech lab, anywhere in there. So if you have 3 reactors and 3 tech labs and 6 reactors, that's 1/3, 2/3. Or if you have 4 tech labs and 5 reactors, that's in the middle, and that's like might be like 42% or some shit. If you have, let's say you have 4 and 4 or 5 and 5 tech labs and reactors, where it's even number, obviously that's 50-50. Anywhere and around that range is good. Just know though, if you have only like 2 tech labs and like 12 reactors, maybe you want to make some more tech labs there. And if you have, again, if you have like 9 tech labs and only 3 reactors, maybe you want to make some more reactors there. Try to get it to around 50-50 or 2/3, 1/3, anywhere around there, and you're going to be like, okay, now all I do is when I want to make Ghost, I make 1 round of Ghost, and I'm done. That's all you do. Literally, go to like 4, 5, 6 ghost and stop.
Okay.
So I would say 5 is like a healthy number to have. And just in general for what you're looking for, if you actually want to use ghost, because all you're going to really be trying to do here is, and if you use no ghost ever, that's also fine. Because I'm going to tell you right now, your problem is when I watch this, it's not, oh, you shouldn't be, if you make ghost, you would have won this game. Like there's other things that are your problem, but ghost eventually will become your problem if you don't use them for sure. They're fucking super good units against Protoss specifically. But if you focus on other things, that's also fine for now.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But if you just, every time you make units out of your production, this is the easiest way to macro, okay? If you make Marauders first, you can only make Marauders off of Tech Labs, so it will fill up your Tech Labs. And then you can hold like D, and then you let go of D, hold A, let go of A, hit Tab, make whatever you want to make, like tank or whatever, hit Tab again, make medevac. What happens there is, if let's just say you make units out of your barracks first and you make Marines first, it'll always prioritize reactors first, and then it will prioritize your Tech Labs after. So if you just hold the A key down, it'll make fuckloads of Marines in all Tech Labs and reactors, but it'll still go reactor first. So something I can tell you, this is a big thing to know, okay? Huge to know. One way I can give you a tip on how to get better at the game is to practice this right here, okay? So I know I'll show you in a second. Let's play this and just see how hard this guy kills you for a second here. He actually loses his army, and the game somewhat stabilizes. Okay, so I'll just remind me. We'll come back to what I was going to tell you because I thought you were literally just dead right there. But I'll show you what I mean in a second here. It's a cool thing you can practice for yourself, and yeah, it'll help you in the future. So now you're counterattacking him with Marines. What are you gonna say?
Oh no, it's just another throw.
Okay, sure.
You can play it. You're good. Yeah.
Well, I would say at this point in the game, it would make the most sense if instead of running all your Marines across the map, if like you just again went back to the medevac stage of the game, like try to maybe throw like 2 medevacs over here and just poke his mineral line, and then that way it always gives you a retreat potential. Like you'd be like, okay, well I don't know where his army is. So maybe when I drop here, I'm going to scan, like, as I'm dropping him, so I know that I'm not going to fly into stalkers that are going to blink on me, and I know if he's not here at all, that I can harass his mineral line, and then I'll kill probes, and I might even kill the Nexus. And let's say you see him coming, and you're like, okay, well, he's here now, let's get the fuck out of here, but let's say then you have a second medevac over here, and you pressure his main base again. Like, if you went back to that style again, where you can go back to double drops, because now the game is a bit wonky, and you guys both are kind of fucking low here, you could break him so hard playing that way. And then you could just have a main army just, you know, reinforcing your base like crazy. And then if the Protoss player never shows up at all at either one of your drops, automatically you know he's going to all-in you. Because if he has no intentions of defending himself, you know he's going to attack. So what you could do then is maybe take your production and re-rally it to an area that you need to defend a base trade with. Potentially. Or like you want to stage your defense at like a planetary or something like that. Because you know for a fact he's going to attack you. And another way you can really guarantee you're not going to get fucked there is what if you take just like 1 Marine, and let's just say hypothetically, okay, you want to defend this planetary, all right, and you're like, that's it, that's my planetary, that's the one I'm defending, that's that the game needs to, it needs to not die. So you could be like, okay, how about I send 1 Marine and stand right there? How about I take 1 Marine and I stand right there? How about I take 1 Marine and I stand right there? Or like right here. And what that does is where can the Protoss attack you from? He either has to go through this location right here, or if he goes up here, I mean, he could kill these rocks, but this will, if this command center is done or whatever, like, yes, these rocks are another attack avenue, and if you have a Marine standing right here, it's going to be out of vision of seeing those rocks, but I mean, if you were like, if you're worried about it, put another Marine there, right? Put a fucking another Marine there. But if you have a Marine in this area, like right over here, you could see him coming up this area right here and coming through here. I mean, I guess that is also kind of unscouted, so you could put another Marine right there. Just what the point I'm trying to make here is put like maybe like 5 Marines on the map that would be like logical places where the Protoss is going to engage through. So if you have a dude standing on very key points, like there's a huge one because it guards the entire top side of the map, because you would see him coming from here through there. You'd see him coming from here through there, and this again leads to anything. And if he kills the rocks, he again has to come through here to go here. So you would see everything if your Marine was standing in this area right here. And that you know, that tells you, well, what if the Protoss is coming this way, and my army is currently guarding this base down here in the bottom left, and he's coming through the top middle of the map? Do I want to sack this base and maybe counterattack him again, or do I want to move my army back and reinforce the choke point and try to defend my base? It gives you options, is all it does. And it seems logical that he's going to do something like that, again, if he's not trying to defend your drops at all. Yeah, I mean, that was a risk that you just did right there, honestly, but it worked out. It paid off. You, until that, right? And you're like, oh, well, fuck me. So, yeah. I mean, even so, that just happened, I would still say that was worth it right there. And the only reason, like, you could have done it in a more effective way with being cost efficient with it with drops. But even though that just happened, I would still give you the lead here because you just killed new economy. And this is mined out. And this is probably looking pretty fucking sad as well because the Protoss player has probably had this base for a long time. Okay, it surprisingly has more than I thought it would. So, but you're limiting his economy. And losing Marines to kill an entire Nexus with probes is not necessarily the worst thing in the world. As long as you're able to mine more yourself too, right? Because then you could just rebuild and hopefully recover. But the only problem you're making though is you're just still making mass Marines and you're fighting against Colossus.
And
yeah.
And I kind of felt that while I was playing. I was like, I hope he doesn't go another Colossus.
Yeah, now he does. Yeah, and now just like one storm and a couple Colossus, and everything's just gonna die.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the power of a Marine.
Oh, what a trip.
Yeah. So anyway, there's like a lot of ways to have avoided this situation from happening in the first place if you would have just played more cautiously, right?
Yeah.
So things to keep in mind. Try not to panic. Terran is, I would say, the race that relies the most throughout the entire game about controlling their opponent. I think every race has that to a degree late game, but Terran has it also early game because of the fact that Terran has the most harass potential, and it kind of needs to harass as well. That's kind of how that race develops. Terran is not a race that scales well if you just allow your opponent to do whatever they want, and you're like, fuck it, I'll just sit here and never do anything, and then you can do what you want, and then we'll fight later. Because then that puts you in situations like this where you're like, fuck, okay, I'm fighting against mass soccer Colossus Templar with bio, and suddenly my army doesn't feel as good anymore. So yeah, trying to be conservative, trying to be effective, and stuff like that is definitely the route you want to be going down for yourself right now, and really practicing to multitask, where, again, you're not having a situation happen where you have like 2,500 minerals in the bank when you're just doing one medevac drop, because that fucks you, obviously, and that just takes practice. Now, to go back really quick and talk about your production, I want to show you what I meant, because I mean the replay is kind of over now, but check this out. I want to go back to when you built a lot of your racks and show you what I mean with what I want you to practice. So here we go. A lot of your racks are coming up. I want you to make all these add-ons at them. And we are good. Okay, so here's what I would want you to do. When you're in the game, like, you could do this in the game when you're playing it. You could do it in a replay. You could do whatever you want. Okay, I just want you to practice this right here. So if I'm going away from 4, hit 4, going away from 4, hit 4, go away from 4, I'm like using my hotkeys, whatever. But when I look at 4, the key thing you want to look at is you want to look at the words on the racks, and you want to see, does it have an R on it or a T on it? And it stands for Reactor Tech Lab. And you can just literally look at it and go, all right. There's one like fucked up back racks out there. You're like, all right, cool. There's
research complete.
That's how many racks I have, and that's what they're capable of. Now, if you wanted to make Marine Marauder right here first, you could do it one of two ways. You could either make Marauders and then make Marines second, like we talked about. That's the easiest way ever, because if I make Marauders, notice how it doesn't ever touch my reactors. Like, that's the easiest way ever to look at this. But if I wanted to make Marines and Marauders, I would say the best trick you need to start giving for yourself is I need to understand, okay, that's a certain amount of Marauders I need to make, so I need to feel good about being able to go like this. Like, literally hitting the D key to make Marauders, or whatever your hotkey for Marauder is, enough to fill up the racks with 1 per, and then hitting the A key to fill it up with 2 per, which would probably be something like that. So that is literally it's a feeling that you need to develop in yourself. So if I'm gonna go, literally, if I'm gonna macro, it's like this. Okay, let's say I'm microing my units. I'm like, all right, let's go fucking attack, and I want to macro right now. Watch the production bottom middle. Do not look at the middle of the screen. Look at bottom middle where the Marines are on the command tab. And I'm going to macro Marine Marauder right now, and it needs to be able to feel like this. Macro Marauder, Marine, and then I'm done. And how good was I on that? I fucked up 3 Marauders extra, which is fine, and I fucked up 2 Marines. And if you do things like that, again, it takes practice, right? To where you got to be like, all right, let's just do it. Like, you know, I'm not saying you cancel it, but you can do it while you're in a replay or something, obviously. But again, if you're attacking again, go back into it, Marauder, Marine, and that time again we fucked up 1 Marauder, 3 Marine. It just takes practice. Do it, keep doing it until you can do it as much as you can. And it's obviously always better to over make the units a tiny bit, especially if you have the money to do it, than to under make them. So make sure you always try to get it done as much as you can. But really just practice it, honestly. Because when you macro against somebody, the reason why I'm telling you to do this, why this is important, is because the last thing I want you to do is go like D, 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 A. Like, do not fucking do that where you like hit the key multiple times. You need to be able to hold it down and just fucking go. So that you can max out like that and you're just like, hell yeah, I'm getting more confident with how effective I am with hitting my my button repeatedly. And it should be able to do things like, you know, you have medevacs going into a guy's base where they're dropping around, and and the last thing I'll say is like how you're microing the drops. When a drop does something like this, 100% you should be macroing your base while this is happening. You don't gotta look at your base even, but you should definitely be macroing your base while this is happening right there. And then you're like, cool, I'm doing my thing. And then when you drop someone's base, you could definitely micro your units in your guy's base while you're there. But what, like, for instance, like once you like do a stim pack and you initiate an auto attack, macro back to your units. Like, see how fast we just did that? And then what was that? That was 2 over on the Marauder and 1 under on the Marine. Again, that's fucking close to flawless. So that's all it needs to be every fucking time. And the second you just literally tell your Marines that they're not doing this right here, they're not doing that. Instead, they're doing this. You macro every fucking time. You need to do it every single time.
Yeah, any of better stuff like the way it was.
And then the last thing is this does not need to be a yes, but if it isn't, it's fine. But do you use camera hotkeys?
I did, yeah.
You do? Okay, so if you have a camera hotkey and you go like, let's just say you need to make supply depots, and let's say this medevac group is on group 2. If you ever want to build buildings, one of 2 things needs to happen. You either need to kill an army and know that, like, let's say a warp-in happens and you kill the entire warp-in and you know the Protoss has nothing for the next few seconds. You could go, all right, cool. Build depots, come back. Or if you haven't killed an army yet and you think that an army is coming and you really need to macro though, you need to go like this. Load, and then boost and like move over there and go back and build. And then come back to your units and now recommit to doing an attack. Because if you go like, if you're in the middle of attacking and you haven't yet killed an army and you for any point in time now, you're like, I don't know, he might attack me and kill me. And you're like, all right, stim pack and let's attack this. I don't know where he is. Okay, let's go build for a while. And you're like building. And you come back and you're like, oh, my medevac just died. Ah, fuck. And you're like, all right, well, I got a little bit left. I guess I'll run around really quick and poke something. And then it dies and your units die. It's just a waste. So knowing when you should be doing macro cycles with micro cycles is a huge thing to know with your medevacs. And you definitely want, because you want to maximize it. You want these to not die as much as possible, because it's the less they die, the more annoying they are for Protoss, the more you keep them defensive, the more damage you can potentially deal in the future. And the more you can now set up, even if these don't die and this is your first drop, what if you macroed a lot of new units and now suddenly you add in a second round of medevacs now, like we talked about, and now you have a second round coming over here while you have a first round up here. So now you're doing double drop, and now you can try to do the same thing again, and it's fucking even harder for Protoss to deal with. This is how you'll grow as a Terran player.
Yeah, and it's fine to do that continuously instead of doing like main frontal attacks.
100%, yeah. Because you're shaving damage into the Protoss. You're like shaving little bits of the Protoss off every time you do this. And even if you like, the thing is if you want to take a third base and you start making a fourth base behind it or something like that, and your opponent's just running around his 3 bases constantly, you can, it's like guaranteed that you're going to get some type of damage done. If the Protoss does not open up with a very mobility style, like heavy style, which is like, again, like we talked about earlier, if they go Colossus, it is so fucking hard to not take damage when you go Colossus. So this is a technique that you need to get good at for you to grow as a Terran player. It is mandatory.
Mineral field depleted.
Because the difference of a good Terran and a bad Terran is knowing how to actually, like, that's why you see players that are like, oh, whenever I play against Protoss, it just feels like it's fucking overpowered or bullshit. And when I watch like Maru play, suddenly he just wins all the time. I don't get it. It's not only because like he can micro his units, like he's like, yeah, I'm fucking doing all these crazy splits and shit, whatever, and he's like dodging storms constantly. It's like, wow, like he's got his units balled up, and then he goes like this, and then suddenly a storm goes right in the middle of all that, and then he goes right back and engages again, and he's got godlike micro, or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's also because he knows where to put his units and when to put them there, which puts so much more pressure on the opponent essentially.
Hey, actually, that makes sense. Oh, dude.
So yeah, you got a bit of a road to climb, or like a road to travel. It's just the harder part for you definitely is going to be now when you need to start learning these techniques.
Next time you coach, I'm gonna be playing Protoss.
Yeah, sounds good. I'd be like, all right, dude. So thanks for the dono. All you gotta do is A move, and you're good to go. I'm just joking. All right, but do you have any final questions about anything we talked about?
Nah, man. I'm sorry for what you had to witness there.
No,
That
you're
was
totally
awful.
fine. I don't even mind. I hope it helps.
Nah, but yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate you going like over the time.
Yeah, it's all good.
If it was a coaching lesson, appreciate it, man.
All right.
Yeah. Thanks, bye. Have a good one, man.
All right, man. Take it easy, and I'll send this to you by like tomorrow on in a VOD, so you can listen to it all
sweet.
again. All right. Take it
Have
easy,
a good
dude.
one, man.
All right, guys. That has been another coaching lesson again with our Terran Diamond rep Avist. But much love, dude. Thanks for doing it, and thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys next time in the next coaching lesson or next video, whatever it is. And until then, good luck and have fun and stay happy, guys. I'll see you soon. Peace, everybody. Bye.